Hey, welcome to this section of Being Unbreakable. This is the Unbreakable Spirit. In this video, I'm going to walk you through exactly how you can go from broken, like I was, to ultimately developing an unbreakable spirit. Let's dive into it right now. Now, before I get into the actual fundamentals of developing an unbreakable spirit, this one's a little bit different nuance than if you have gone to the Unbreakable Mind or the Unbreakable Body, because this is more of a reclamation process. This is a little bit more metaphysical, a little bit more esoteric, and yet in all of the work I've done, this practice has been one of the most profound practices that I've ever discovered. Now, I've discovered this from numerous different sources, from great teachers out there, everyone from, everything from Buddhism to Carolyn Mace, to Robert Douglas, to Mastin Kipp. I love his work. So all of these practices out there, I've gained access to little pieces and then simply put them into my own fundamental practice that I've brought to you so that you can reclaim your spirit. Now, what does it mean to have an unbreakable spirit? And I'll kind of explain this through a story that I experienced, going through. I call it my dark night. We all have a journey that we are on, if you consider that. All humans are going through the same process of evolution, much like a butterfly or a caterpillar moving into a butterfly. It's as if we're going from our childlike psychology into adult psychology. And what that means is when we are a child, our brain, and this is kind of the science side of it, our brain is literally hasn't fully developed yet, and we kind of know this already. But what that means is that it's as if there's no filter process for if somebody says that, I just don't think you look good in that shirt. If you're a child and you don't know any better, that just goes directly into your subconscious mind, and all of a sudden you just hear, I don't look good, meaning I'm not a good looking person, versus, oh yeah, maybe just like that doesn't match your eyes, or that doesn't match the pants that you have on, right? Like if you're an adult, you can have some rational brain. Now, here's the interesting thing. All humans go through the same process. I don't know why, it just is what it is. But what happens is when we start to take on these belief systems, and I call them your BS, these belief systems, these thoughts, these statements that we hear from the world around us, from society, from parents, from other children, when we start to take those in, we start to internalize them, and we get away from being our brightness, our greatness, that part of us that is true light, that has gifts to give to the world. When we start to take that on, it's like we become fractured away from our goodness, our greatness, our light. And so the idea of reclaiming your spirit is simply to go back into those moments in your life and really allow yourself to, with an adult mind now, understand what happened. Because here's the interesting thing. You might be getting some results in your life that you're not happy with. And that's totally normal. That's completely normal. Everybody has that. But if you understood why you're getting those results, and if you notice, there's a certain area of your life that has much more meaning than others. A certain area, maybe it's your relationships, maybe it's your health, maybe it's your finances, maybe it's your business, maybe it's your spirit, whatever that is, you put a lot of meaning, a lot of emphasis in that. And it's because you have a lot of belief about that area that you can't have that thing, the idea of what you really want. And until you actually go back into your childlike psychology, and that's the whole idea of, in the metaphors and the myths, in the hero's journey, the child saves the father. That's sort of the idea. We have to go back into that childlike psychology and allow that to come forward and blossom. And so there's a true stepstone process in this. It's not just like, oh, one day I went to therapy and then I'm done. Now, of course, you can get this from talk therapy, but it might take years and years and years and years. I don't know why talk therapy takes forever. You just have to go through this simple step-by-step process that I learned from all the teachers out there, and I just put it into simply the Unbreakable Spirit model. Now, I'll give you an example of how this affected me. In 2005, I went to war. So I was in the United States military. I was in the National Guard. I was a civilian soldier, as they call it. And when I went, I experienced some levels of trauma that frankly, I don't think anybody should have to witness. Things like, cars being blown up and just things on fire. There's just roadside bombs everywhere. It was just, of course, it's war, it's chaos, right? Well, what's interesting about that for me was that wasn't even as traumatic as the next part of the story, which I'll tell you about. And why that is, and I need to make note of this, is why that is because I didn't put as much meaning on those events in my life that I put on in this other event in my life. And that's important, again, for you to know, because there's areas of your life that you put more meaning, and it's just going to be much more traumatic, even if it's a more benign trauma. Even, for instance, again, I went to war. That could be catastrophic trauma. I could have lost my life at any given moment. But for me, it was like, whatever. And so I came back from that experience without having even really been phased until I got to 2013, or actually it's 2014 rather, when I had signed a contract with a business partner, and he and I were going to build out a great facility. And I was going to build my clinic. I had a classic rehab, sports rehabilitation clinic in there, and he was going to run the training side. And then he was the primary on the lease, and I was a secondary on the lease. And so I gave him money to give to the landlord, etc. Well, I put a bunch of money into the build out and all these things. And so I was also growing my business, I was growing my family. We had a daughter at the time, and then we had one on the way. My wife was pregnant. And in April of 2015, I got a text message from my business partner at the time saying that he had not paid rent in 90 days. Now, mind you, I had also seen writing on the walls, before that. I just knew that he wasn't as it wasn't as thought right, with like forethought as I had anticipated. And so through that process, I started to experience more and more traumas. Well, when I got that text message from him, and I was cash poor at the time, and I had a baby on the way, and I had a family to feed, I was freaking out. That was traumatic for me. I was super traumatized by that. And so I didn't know how to handle that. And so I went into a dark depression. I went into anxiety on one end and depression on the other, and I was just constantly moving all around. And I didn't know how to process that. And by ripping apart my entire life, it actually was, now knowing what I now know, was the best thing possibly for me, because now I'm able to come to you with this material and show you exactly how I put myself together and how you can put yourself together without even needing a traumatic moment. You see, you don't have to go through the trauma, you don't have to go through the crisis, but as you probably have heard, never let a good crisis go to waste is the quote. And I'm sure I'm misquoting that, but that is such a poignant point here, is that never let, if you have a crisis, or you don't even need a crisis to go through this material. You see, if you are in a place where you're just simply dissatisfied, you're unfulfilled, you feel like there's something more out there for you, maybe you're missing something, maybe you're just not getting the results you want in life, pardon me, maybe you're not getting the results in your business, maybe you're not getting the results in your relationships, in your finances, in your health, whatever the case is, it's because you probably have some traumas that you haven't processed. You have some belief systems, some BS that is stopping you, and so it's not allowing you to move forward. And so by then, me going through this material, me learning from all these great teachers out there and putting this together, all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, I could breathe again. I could take that anxiety, take those feelings of tension, that constant tension, just let that pass and allow myself to just be in the moment. You see, again, I had to literally take my old self and let it just die off so that my new self could be developed. and this is how I did it. So it's a 4-phase process in order to develop an unbreakable spirit. So if you want to develop an unbreakable spirit, it's a 4-phase process. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and phase 4. So phase 1 is always simply separating, so separating yourself from your old self. Now you hear about this a lot in tribal societies. They'll literally take young boys or boys that are transitioning from boyhood to adulthood, usually around the age of 14. The military does this. You'll hear about this in hazing rituals and fraternities. You'll hear about this as the initiate. It's a very metaphysical practice, but you literally are separating yourself from your old self. That's really what the idea is. So it's not so much that you have to literally leave where you are physically living, but to get out of the house for a few weeks might be a good thing. Who knows? To get out of the office even still. So you literally have to separate yourself from your old self and your new self. And what are you separating yourself from? You're taking that old childlike psychology, that emotional being, that part of you that is fractured, and you're going to go back into those traumas and you're going to look at them with a new lens. And that new lens is called an adult brain. You're literally going to look at that. And as an example, I looked at my old thought self, right? My like the child of me that was a bit of a mooch, right? Because like I needed stuff when I was a kid. And so I had to go back into that old child of me, that part of me that I just hated, right? I was a mooch when I was a kid. I was asking like my friends for like, hey, what are you guys eating? You know, like I was always like, hey, I'm gonna come over to your house. You know, like I don't know why. I was just like in that lack mentality. But by me going back into that and allowing that trauma to come back up and allowing that to come up, but by me seeing it now with a different lens, you'd be amazed. It completely washes away that emotion of pain that I had, that shame, that hurt, that guilt, all that caustic nature underneath that seed, that all just goes away. And then once you do that, then you can go into the next phase, which is called initiation. Initiation. So initiation is simply then by simply virtue of awareness and self insight, is initiating yourself into who you need to be on this planet, of understanding, okay, well, I was this old person. I used to do these old things. Now I have this new psychology. So really all of this separation is a deep healing process. This is deep spiritual healing, but you can't stop there, because if you stop there, then you're going to simply go right back into it. You have to now move forward as a whole new person. That's why when you hear about things like vision quests or the hero that goes into the jungle, he comes out as a whole new human because he understands, or she understands, their purpose on this earth. Now, when you do that, you go into the hurt, you see how the hurt has given you the purpose, right? You're going to see how that hurt has given you the gold, as they say, to bring to the masses. And that gold is that part of you that you've always wanted to be. Maybe it's the actor in you, maybe it's the painter, maybe it's the poet, maybe it's the doctor, maybe it doesn't matter what it is. But there's something inside of you that you genuinely want to give and you never thought you could give it. But once you get initiated into that, you release all the hurt and all the BS, all that belief system that you had, then you see, oh, it's possible for me. And now I can start to put that together. It doesn't mean that you're going to go out, quit your job and jump into that. But what it does is it sets the framework for you to move forward step by step. If you're wondering how to do these things, of course, it's in the Unbreakable Spirit course, but you can even simply just get the material, read The Hobbit or read the Star Wars trilogy. You'd be amazed at how much information, how much richness is in these stories. All story is taught like this because this is the path of becoming as a human. We know that why does story resonate with humans so much? And if the archetype or the myth is incorrect, we get so upset. Perfect case. At the end of the big season of Game of Thrones, so many people were so upset. They were so upset, and the reason being is because they didn't get the myth right. We know that a story is supposed to go a certain way because it informs us about ourselves. It informs us about our own becoming as a human. And we need to be reminded of that becoming so that we can achieve it. There's reasons why movies like Harry Potter and The Lion King and Star Wars have all done so well because the myths were correct. They got the myths right. And when you get the myths right, then all of a sudden you get informed by what you need to do as a human to develop your consciousness, your psyche, your thought patterns, whatever idea you want to put to it. That's literally it. It's just the true path of personal evolution as a human. So again, initiation is the ability to go within yourself, see your purpose on this earth, and then to take that power back and put boundaries around yourself and say, all right, I'm going to do me first. I'm going to take care of me before I take care of all y'all, and then I'm going to move forward. So that is what initiation is. Once you get initiated, then you're going to step forward into the world with that new belief, or not that new belief, but that new purpose, and then you're going to experience ordeal. And you're probably wondering, wait a minute, separation, that's kind of an ordeal. Even initiation is kind of an ordeal. Initiation is kind of fun, but ordeal is really now that you know who you are, you're going to step in the world, and you're going to be awkward. You're going to be like that new butterfly that doesn't know how to use its wings. You know, that new bird that just like can't get out of the nest. It's going to move forward, and it's going to face challenge. Boom, you're going to get hit in the face a couple times, but it's there to guide you. In this process, you're going to go through the fundamental psyches, the fundamental nature of your psyche, that primal psyche that you're going to go through. These things are called archetypes, these energies, if you will. Things like the warrior energy and the leader energy. And when I say energy, I mean archetypes, these parts of you that you have to develop, you have to cultivate. And if you don't cultivate them, you're not going to be a full human. You're not going to transform into the human you possibly can be. Now, again, the reason I tell you this stuff is that even in my own practice, in my brick and mortar facility, I was noticing people were coming into me with pain, with GI issues, with all kinds of ailments. And it wasn't until we actually started healing their spirit, making them unbreakable in their spirit, that they weren't healing until we started doing that. So now that we're doing that, now they're starting to heal truly, because the mind and the body are deeply connected. The body is the mind, really, at the end of the day. Okay, after we've gone through ordeal and we start to get some traction, then we can return back and assimilate back into society. What does that mean? What does that look like? Well, simply, it goes like this. Returning, sort of like, the Return of the King or the Return of the Jedi, right? Like these, they literally have it's actually kind of funny that they do that. They literally have it in the title. They know that at the end of the story, the Jedi, the hero of the story, has to return. And it has to return, and it has to give its understanding, its knowledge of the world. It has to do that now. That's literally what this is right now. This is why I'm bringing this to the world, and why I recognize that this is one of the most fundamental practices on the face of the planet, because I personally went through that, and my return, because I am a healer, I'm a high performance coach, I'm a person that gets the best out of people, I have to bring this to the world. That's part of my return. If I didn't do this stuff, I would have never been able to bring this truly to you, and you would have not been able to heal as a whole person. Again, you can heal with just body work, you can heal and try to do mind work and just do therapy, but until you truly go through and you start to reclaim your spirit, nothing will truly step you forward. You will never be truly unbreakable. So that's what this really is. So again, when you return, you're simply assimilating with the knowledge of the journey to go back into society and give your gifts back to society. And that's the point. So you're going to notice you're going to get some traction in the ordeal. You might start your side hustle that becomes a true hustle, but until you really return and give those gifts fully and step out across as the Indiana Jones across the the invisible bridge and he steps forward and he doesn't know exactly what that is. You have to step forward with faith and bring your gifts back to the world. And until you do that, all of this doesn't matter. You see, we're not on this earth to just do it for ourselves. We're on this earth to give to others. Again, that's what this is. You have something in you. You have some inspiration. You have some service that you want to give to the world. I know you do. You know you do. So let's stop bullshitting each other and just fucking get to it, right? I like to get in people's faces because they know they have something to give. You know you have something to give. And you have to go through this path, through this process, in order to truly break yourself down, in order to truly become the flower that you need to be to bring your light into the world. That's what this path is. So use this path. If you have questions about it, check out the Unbreakable Spirit course. But if you have questions and you want to learn from others, again, Carolyn Mace, people like Carl Jung, just Friedrich Nietzsche, all of these amazing philosophers. Maston Kipp was another person I enjoyed. Just anything about archetypes, anything about the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell's work, all of it is amazing. But if you just want to do the work for yourself, then jump into the Unbreakable Spirit course, and I'll see you there.